David Lough, President of the Downtown Sarasota Condominium Association. We do a Zoom hybrid. Don't know how many people. It looks like a lot more turned up in person because of our guests today. So welcome everybody, and I want to try and acknowledge all of city staff. Nick, Alvy, Green, Dan Ornstein, who am I missing? And welcome to our members of city staff for being here. And thanks for coming out on a very Chamber of Commerce kind of Wednesday afternoon. So in the interest of time, let's just move right along and see if we have a quorum. I think we have all board members, albeit Judy Mower and Kathy Sellers may be joining us, but certainly we have a quorum, so may we declare that. So moved, okay. Approval of the minutes. These were circulated the other day to everybody. Were there any edits, additions, corrections, etc.?
Move approval. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes adopted. Treasurer's report, Clark.
Seacoast checking account has $5,109.73.
Good.
And we breathlessly await the check from the city for
Yeah,
$2,000.
we appreciate their $2,500 in the works. Without further ado, let me turn it over to Dr. Berry, who will introduce our special guest.
Okay. Well, wow, this is a nice turnout. Appreciate that. I'm going to introduce all three of them to begin with, and then they will they've selected who goes first, second, and third. And so they might want to re-identify themselves when that happens. And I'm really happy to see city staff here. I feel like people are interested in what we're interested in. So let me begin with Nicole Mills. Nicole has had 30 years experience, and I wouldn't believe it, with the Florida Department of Transportation. She's a graduate of Virginia Tech with a degree in civil engineering, and she has a professional engineering license and is a certified public manager. Nicole is currently serving as Interim Director of Transportation Development, where she oversees work program development, project cost estimating, transportation development, planning, multimodal, PD and E, design and right-of-way. She has a variety of responsibilities within this area, and she's spent her entire career with the Department of Transportation. And next, we got this big guy named Keith. Keith is a retired U.S. Army officer with over 20 years of infantry and transport corps experience. And after the Army, he served as a senior federal civil servant for the U.S. Army and a director of business development for the Boeing Corporation. Keith is graduating, congratulations, in May with his doctorate in history. I'm always appreciative of a good academic accomplishment like that. He is responsible for leading an interdisciplinary team ensuring safety implementation in all areas of planning, design, construction, maintenance, traffic operations, industrial health and safety, and public engagement as part of the district safety program. So if you're concerned about the safety, you might want to call him in. And we have Bessie Reina, R-E-I-N-A, I did that right. She is a planning manager and department, and Bessie is a graduate of Florida State and has a master's degree in urban and regional planning. And she's an alumnus of the Fulbright program. So without any further ado, who's number one today? All right.
And Keith, when you speak, our speakers tend to try and have it both ways. It's a fisheye cam. And
Okay.
so kind of move back and forth as you wish, okay?
Okay. Okay. Go ahead and each one of us are obviously going to talk about something different. I've got some safety stuff to lead y'all today, so we'll start with our area, talking about, why do we need to do some safety updates? It's kind of a loaded question with a lot of people probably, but I'll show you what some of the things are that focus our attention.
Sorry, it's not showing up. Somehow the Zoom is not translating it, showing up full screen here, but it's.
Are you sharing the screen?
We had the full screen and then it just went away.
Okay, we'll try again then. It's,
We see your lovely faces, but no slideshow.
here, where's the. Here. Back. There we go. Good.
There we go. Okay. So, basically I said, why do we need to do some safety projects here in Sarasota? We use the safe system approach, which is a process fostered by the Federal Highway Association that really looks at all of these different aspects. And I'm not going to ask you to read all of those because it's an eye test. But really we look at one of the biggest things is that humans are going to make mistakes. So our approach now is trying to be a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. Now, granted, a lot of the improvements that we're doing that you've seen here recently they got started years ago, so they were a little more reactive in nature. But what we're trying to do in a lot of our operational improvements and other things going forward with new projects is how can we make it better for the future? So, next slide.
The way it's doing the slides is not working. Try it again.
I would go on, but my stuff, you need the visual. I can tell you all about my dissertation if you want. I don't need slides for this. Okay.
Next one.
This is a statewide, 8 fatalities a day, 49 serious injuries in the state of Florida, not in Sarasota, in the state of Florida. Still a bad number. It's still a bad number. And what we look at is we understand, that being that humans make mistakes, you'll see Target Zero is the campaign that the state's doing as part of Vision Zero. Target Zero is our campaign to get to 0 traffic fatalities on our system. We understand we'll never be able to eliminate all crashes. We'll never be able to eliminate all crashes with injuries, but we are shooting to eliminate crashes with fatalities and serious injuries. And serious injuries are obviously the ones that are extensive in nature, require hospital stays and a lengthy recovery. Next slide. These next couple of slides are heat maps that show the blooms in red are where the majority of the crashes are occurring in Sarasota. You see, and this is a period from 2015 to 2021, there were over 2,400 crashes. 294 of those were fatal crashes. Over 2,100 were serious injury crashes. And these slides are available for y'all, to produce afterward. You can look at the eye chart there and get where the specific numbers of types of crashes and how many fatalities and serious injuries and all that. And the big thing for you to take away just from looking at that is we don't look at, well, it's a crash. We look at all the different types of crashes. Head on, rear end, side swipe, right angle, left angle, turning. I mean, there's all different kinds of things. And we do that to that level of depth to make sure that we understand what's happening at that location so that we can design something to counter that and try and make it a little bit better. Next slide. And these are only on the state roads, obviously. Now, this is just since 2022 up to early 23. 44 crashes, 7 of them fatal, 37 serious injury. Again, just on the state roads. And if you're interested, we have these same kinds of sets of data sets for all of our counties in District 1, which are 12 counties total, North Polk in the north, all the way down through Collier in the south and across to Okeechobee. So also, if you wonder, Steve, why are we not getting to something quickly? We have the largest district in the state by area and lane miles, and so we have a lot of roads that we're working on. So we're not putting anything off because we want to. We're trying to get to them as quickly as we can. Next slide. Okay. All roads in Sarasota County in the first 2 months of 2023, over 2,200 crashes, almost 1,000 injuries and 16 fatalities. And that's all roads, state, local, city, county, whatever. And you can see the numbers over here for bicyclists and pedestrians as well. Next slide. So with bicycle and pedestrians, that's the piece that I was asked to address for today. So I'm going to show you some of the initiatives that we're doing here in the downtown area. And obviously there are others in other parts of Sarasota County, but these are closer to where you are. This is the 301 corridor. It's the northern part of it. This is Fruitville Road down here in the south, going north up to MLK here. So there was a project in February, or it's supposed to go in February of next year, which will be a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which are similar to what you see on some of the roundabouts out here. That's going to go up here at 21st Street. Then between just north of Fruitville, this was one that was completed back in August of 2019. They did a median modification project that closed out that two-way left turn lane and made it to where people, it limits the number of cross lane traffic. And then at 6th Street, there's some short-term pedestrian safety enhancements, again, right down in this area that we're evaluating it to see what kind of long-term treatments we may do there. Next slide. This is a chart that will show you that median modification project on 301 just north of Fruitville. These are the numbers of crashes and fatalities. All crashes is this lane, and fatal and serious injury crashes here. And this was when the project was in. So it went up fairly high. These are bike ped crashes, this line here, and you saw a dramatic drop. And so now they're kind of hanging down in there. And so that's the kind of improvement that we're hoping to see, is they drop in the serious crashes, and in urban areas like this, a drop in pedestrian and bicyclist crashes. And one thing I want to point out here, some folks may say that, well, this is still, a lot of crashes. A lot of things, and talking with some of the folks here before the meeting, one of the factors that we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, but there's one factor that we cannot really control, and it's human behavior. I said that a safe system approach acknowledges that humans make mistakes. There's only up to a certain level that we can do something that will impact or influence that behavior. Ultimately, it's the driver behind the wheel. One of the things that we saw during the pandemic was the number of crashes went down. Why do you think?
So,
People weren't driving, but the number of fatalities went up. Higher speeds, because the roads were more open. What have we seen since then? Fatalities are still climbing, because all the people that weren't on the roads that are now back on the roads, but that behavior has not changed. Aggressive behavior, excessive speeding. We talked to our law enforcement partners, and it would astound you the number of people that they catch just on the interstate that are in triple-digit speeding. Triple-digit speeding. There was one, and this is out here on our part of I-75, and I say our because I live in South Manatee County. I have a Sarasota mailing address, so I experience all of this every day too. So triple-digit speeding. The posted speed limit at its highest is 70 miles an hour, so that's a minimum of 30 plus miles an hour over the speed limit. So it's that human behavior is a piece that really fights us very hard. Next slide. This is a PHB. It used to be called a HAWK. I don't remember what a HAWK stands for, but it doesn't matter because it's not called that anymore. PHB, pedestrian hybrid beacon. This is something different than an RRFB, which is a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. And the reason I tell you that, you'll see some of them it's the little rectangular thing. It flashes real quick. This is a solid red light. It's flashing red and then it goes solid. The major difference in this is that cars may not stop, even though they're supposed to for the RFB, but they really better stop for this, because if they don't, it's treated like a red light running offense. And there are some regulations on where we can put these and where we can't. And the main thing is speed limit. By statute or regulation, something, we can't put one of these if it's, correction, we can't put an RRFB if the posted speed is higher than 35 miles an hour. So you'll see them at 35 miles an hour or less, but you won't see them at 45. You know, a lot of these roads around here are 45. You won't see an RFB there. Now, one of the reasons why we put PHB down here between Fruitville and Gulfstream, I asked, well, why couldn't we put one? Because I think it's 35 coming into there. Well, the response back, and hopefully y'all will agree with this assessment, is that when there's a big event at the convention center or whatever it is there at the Ritz, and all those people let out, where do they want to go? They're going to cross 41, right? And RFB will be stopping the traffic like every 10 seconds. If they stop, because it's just that constant flow of human mass going across the road. This will stop the traffic, let the people cross, and then let the traffic go again. So it keeps it going smoothly and more efficiently in both modes. So that's one of the things we're doing. The big thing, reduces vehicle and pedestrian crashes by 69%. So again, reducing those crashes is what we're trying to get to. Next slide. Pedestrian treatments at Alderman. This is the southern part of 301. Now, this is where, that's the Ford dealership. That's where I sold my F-150 last year. So there down to Siesta Drive, we did, I'll tell you in a minute, this road safety audit. I call that the melting day. These guys were with us. It was so freaking hot out there that day.
God.
We are dedicated public servants. I kid you not, it must have been 125 degrees. And we walked from here all the way up to the Publix and back. And when we do that, it's to get an eyes on look, not drive by, all that kind of crap. It's looking at what's going on to where, like the angle of the sidewalk for people that, maybe in a wheelchair or have, walking with a cane, just the angle of the sidewalk's too much that it causes it more difficult for you. Or there's not a place at the curb for a wheelchair or a walker to, ramp to go across the street. Utility poles in the middle of a sidewalk, where are the bus stops, all that kind of stuff. We look at those things, and we had like, how many people that day? It was like 40 of us out there. We split into two groups and went up and split and came back. And it was DOT people, it was city people, it was county people, it was various association people. And I tell you all that to tell you that when we make and plan these things, it's not, the three of us from the DOT coming up with the idea and that's what runs with it. It's multiple levels of collaboration and input on what needs to be done, what can be done, or what can't be done in some cases, and why can't it be done? Is it financial, is it physical, or whatever? So we did that, and there's a lot of things that are being evaluated from that. The report comes out with all these different things, and so we start working with the city, about what's working within their plan. And this guy over here used to be a DOT guy, so he knows how we operate, so we can't get anything by him. But he's a good man, and we can count on him to be honest with us, and he knows that we'll be honest with him. It's a really good working relationship. But I bypassed that alderman thing. This is one that it's a trail extension off of the Legacy Trail, right? That's going to come across the south end of Payne Park, right by the Ford dealership that I spent so much time at. And we're looking at putting in a crosswalk there over 301 because that's where the people are going to go. I'll share some dirty laundry here. We were like, well, why can't we put it up in Oak Street, right? Oak Street, well, because that would require people to go up a block and come back down. What are people going to do? They're like water, right? It's the shortest, quickest way. They're going to cross there anyway. So we got with our traffic operations engineer, explained the situation. He's like, I can see this. And so we're looking at how we can put something there that will provide that connectivity to the trail, make more sense. And my friends at the Ford dealership are probably going to get a modification out in front of their thing there that will restrict some of the left turns across the northbound traffic, which will make it safer for everybody. Next slide. Okay, this is on 41 North. So here's Boulevard of the Arts, here's 47th Street. We were asked by the city about doing a crosswalk up in this area. They had a couple of locations that we were looking at, and right now we're looking at something probably going in at some point just south of 47th Street. That's in the city's hands now. We did our assessment. Now they've got some stuff that they got to try and work out. And I say that it's a collaborative thing. We all work together to see what can be done and when can it be done, and combine various streams of funding to do it. Or right-of-way acquisition, where's the best way, because we might be able to save some money that way. That's that one. And 41 and Boulevard of the Arts. Had a great conversation with the folks over here earlier. Right now, I'm going to look at my notes here and make sure I don't skip something, because all these roundabouts were put in before I got into the job. I'll put that disclaimer out there so you can't blame me about any complaints or something. Blame Nicole over here. But right now, there's not any planned safety improvements out there at Boulevard of the Arts, because the data and the studies that we had did not project any real need right there. But talking with these folks here and knowing what's going on across the street, what I'm going to get with my staff back in Bartow is look at doing a speed study in that stretch and a safety study to see what kind of improvement might be needed in the future with all of this new growth and development that's happening across the street. But we're going to wait on doing the speed studies probably until the Fruitville Roundabout is done, because I'm going to fling that out there. Fruitville Roundabout is open, but it is not finished. How do we know that? All those orange and white barrels that are out in the middle of the road, that's a good sign that it's not done yet. So when you see all of those gone and the mobile message boards and all that stuff are gone, then you can think, hey, it must be finished, quote unquote, finished now. And because there's a lot of little things that are changing there, lane shifts, how the Fruitville Roundabout operates and all these different things that are affecting how Fruitville Roundabout works, and obviously affect the traffic on this side of Fruitville Roundabout. So we will let that normalize out a little bit and then do something so that the data that we get is actually reflective of what will be the case, not during a construction period, because that's artificial. We want to wait until it gets to where it's supposed to be steady state, and then we'll get that data.
Go
Gulfstream roundabout?
When Gulfstream is done, yes, but they're talking about this side of Fruitville roundabout. Yeah, for the up to Boulevard of the Arts. Yeah, Fruitville is done. Fruitville roundabout obviously is done, but the MOT, maintenance of traffic, is affecting Fruitville roundabout. So, yeah, it's done, but it's not operating the way it should because of all the MOT, the maintenance of traffic from the Gulfstream roundabout. He was on a TV article a couple weeks ago trying to explain all that. We had a meeting with them yesterday about what I'll tell you about that. Next slide. It was all good, at least we think. This is Sunset and Gulfstream, the crosswalk there. We had a meeting, I don't know, about a month or so ago, a couple months ago, with a bunch of residents of the neighborhoods on, I guess most of them were in this area here, about what can we do out there. And so we got with our traffic operations guys, and again, we're limited at what we can do immediately because of the construction and the maintenance of traffic issues at Gulfstream are impacting that intersection. But we have some concepts that we're working through now, and we're evaluating them to see what might be a good long-term solution there. And so those are all being evaluated now. Next slide. Okay, this is a little bit outside the downtown area. This is the intersection of Fruitville and Beneva, the big shopping center out there. We're looking at doing a safety project out there in 25 that is going to be some signing and marking enhancements and signal improvements to help traffic flow through that intersection, both pedestrian and vehicular.
Oh,
Next
Jim, Jim, it's not off.
I think this is my last slide. I want to show you this, the green roads there. This is a lighting retrofit. We're changing out all the old, what is it, high phosphor sodium?
High pressure sodium.
High pressure sodium.
The
I'm not an
orange,
engineer, I'm
yeah.
a historian. She's the engineer. And we're changing them out for LED lights. And what I wanted to show you here is this number 334 and 917 are lights that were replaced by the city and county of Sarasota. So again, it's another collaborative success story of what all we're doing there to replace these lights to make them better and light up those roadways a lot more efficiently. And that's all that I have. We'll be around for questions.
All right, so we had a question posed to us, what's next post Gulfstream roundabouts? So we have a couple of different topics to talk about regarding what's next. So let's start with the Big Ringling Bridge. Next slide, please. So the Big Ringling Bridge, no, we're not rebuilding the bridge. The bridge is fine. We're resealing the deck because it's in a saltwater environment, it's corrosive. So in order to keep the bridge working the way it should, we have to put a sealer on it, like your fence in your backyard. So that will be done this summer. They're going to grind off the top surface of the bridge deck and seal it and then restripe it. So so that's the orange project. Then we have a resurfacing project, which is in the red. And the resurfacing project starts at Sunset, and we'll have a break over the bridge. The bridge is concrete, we don't resurface that. And it'll come over to Bird Key. Our work program has it wrong, it said Bird Prey, we have to get that fixed. Yeah, I said, ooh, I don't know that road. But it'll go to Bird Key. And then we have another bridge that's in a PD&E, getting ready for a replacement, the Little Ringling Bridge. And that's the project that's shown in purple. And the green is the Gulfstream roundabout. So next slide, please. So regarding the Ringling Bridge, this is what it currently is, your typical section. You have 12-foot wide travel lanes, a 10-foot wide bicycle lane or shoulder, and you have behind the barrier wall a 10-foot wide sidewalk. Next slide, please. When the restriping and the ceiling job comes through, we're going to adjust the typical slightly to accommodate the trolley a little bit better. So, I mean, we have the Bay Runner trolley out there, highly successful. It's a beautiful ride. I love riding it. It's fun. On a day like today, it's probably very full. So anyway, the lane that's out there right now, the 10-foot wide lane, is a little bit tight for the trolley itself. So we're going to, with the restriping, move everything over. We'll have a 5-foot shoulder on the inside, 12-foot travel lane, and a 10-foot wide travel lane. Then we'll have a 2-foot buffer stripe, like you see on some of the bicycle lanes, and a 10-foot shoulder. So, well, this is what's out there now. We added this is what's out there now. Yeah, we added the buffer to allow for the trolley's mirrors. What I don't think the trolley drivers actually realize that they can go into that buffer area if they have to get around a sign, because some of their mirrors have been whacking the signs in the concrete wall. And right now we call it a shared bus bike shoulder. So the people out there with the bicycles or the e-bikes, they're sharing that lane with the trolley. And it's been working, but there's not a lot of room for the regular bicyclists who want to be out there, because they're doing regular foot power, trying to get up that grade, and you got a trolley behind you. It's tough. So this is the ultimate. This is what the bridge will look like probably come September, once our ceiling job is done. So reducing the travel lanes from 12-foot and 11-foot to a 10.5-foot. And that's the width that's on 41. The narrower travel lanes make it a little bit uncomfortable for people to go at an excessive speed. So we're seeing good results from a slower speed. A little bit wider transit lane for the trolley. And we're changing the transit lane to also cover e-bikes and the scooters. There's been some legislative language put through that I think is going to go through, and the legislature's just about done. I think that language is going to go through that allows the e-bikes and the scooters, low-speed vehicles on the road. So because the shared bus bike shoulder's been working so well, we're going to keep it. Trolley and those vehicles will be able to share. And I think that makes you happy, right? We had a conversation about that. So, and then still a bicycle lane for the foot power. So I think we're accommodating everybody out here. And then, next slide, please. We go to the resurfacing jobs. Okay, so you have the Bay Runner. So when we get over in our resurfacing, the typical will continue all the way over until you get to St. Armand's. And then in St. Armand's, you got the circle, and everything changes once you get to the circle. Huh? Oh, that's okay. So here's the Bay Runner. The city, DOT and the city have an agreement where we were funding 3 years to get the trolley up and running. We have 1 more year of that funding. Now we're working to get some additional funding towards the city and working on a plan where eventually the city can take over 100%. Right now it's still free. That's for the city to determine when DOT moves away from the funding. DOT's goal is to not fund in perpetuity. If it's a successful route, you want your locals to be successful and run it themselves. But the city's doing a great job with this trolley service, and we have park and rides, and here you go, down here to the beach. That's how we do it. Park in the parking garage and go to the beach. At least that's how I do it. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so to continue, years ago, my time at DOT, years ago, the city came to us, we want to change US 41, take out the signals and put our big intersections as roundabouts. And I'm sitting there going, huh? I still remember that meeting. And I'm like, there's no way that'll ever work. Well, okay, I was wrong. So we've got some in place. I think it was overall 9, I think, was the original plan. So we have 1, 2, 4 in place. I'll show you about 2 more here. So Ringling and Maine, the PD&E is done. This is just the concept. We're still waiting to get design money, and then we'll need some right of way and some construction money. So as soon as we get design money, we'll be good to go. The thing is, when we start these jobs, we want to make sure we have our other phases funded. When you start design, you want right-of-way money, and then you want to get construction money. Otherwise, it turns stale and gets old, and then you got to redo it, which costs more. Okay, so then next slide, we have 2 more roundabouts. Okay, MLK. This is a bigger one. We need a little bit more right-of-way on this one. And then the next one is Myrtle. Those 2, MLK and Myrtle, are currently in design right now, but we're looking to get some right-of-way money. So we'll see what happens. We'll start our work program gaming cycle, looking for money in July, and hopefully we'll be able to find something. Because the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be. All right, and let's see, what's next? Is that my last one? Okay, and then we'll talk about Fruitville Road. Okay.
Okay, so I want to share with everybody some highlights from what we have been doing in planning, starting off with a corridor vision plan we did for Fruitville Road. It's a new initiative we have at the district. Really, all of District 1, there's so many pieces, parts of it that are growing, or they're intensifying in terms of density. Our rural areas are becoming a bit more suburban. So we see a need to get with our partners to make sure we understand a long-term vision. How do they want to see their communities grow? And then we can better understand how we should be adjusting the state roadways so that the right road is in the right place. And one of the first corridors we did was in Fruitville. One of the reasons we did this corridor vision plan, as you can see from this very busy picture, is exactly that reason. There was so much going on. We were hearing about redevelopment along the corridor. We were starting to see some activity centers, as you see on the red. At the time, there was a lot of conversation on where the Sun Trail alignment would be. And then we also heard that the Bobby Jones golf course was going to be redeveloped. So with all of that, we're seeing a change in users. This road is already a busy road. It's 6 lanes in certain segments. And now we have a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bicyclists. We have transit on the corridor. And by the way, we were looking through all the older plans, and there were these big ideas. So there was a need to understand how everyone saw this corridor evolving. And this study looked at the segment of Fruitville from 301 to past I-75. Next slide. So we started out because there was a lot on the table. We really wanted to understand, well, what were the priorities? So we did a survey, and we got a lot of feedback from the public. And what interested me was a lot of the comments, the top comments were people wanted us to address safety, vehicle speed, and pedestrian access. And when we dug a little deeper and we looked at the comments, we saw a lot of the issues relating to safety and vehicle speed was that the folks who were walking, biking, taking transit on the corridor, they were the ones who had a lot of concerns about safety. They were the ones who were making comments that, you know, it feels that people are going too fast sometimes along this corridor. So that was something we took into consideration, as well as congestion. We know it's a busy corridor. Next slide. So just getting to the meat of it, the point of it, because this took about a year or more. We got a lot of input from the public and our partners, and we drafted a planning level concept, a long-term vision of how the corridor could evolve. And what we drafted was essentially adjusting the widths of the lanes so we could have more space for the people walking and biking on the corridor. Instead of having that 5-foot wide sidewalk long-term, maybe it'll be better to have a 10 to 12-foot path. As you can see, this concept on the bottom here goes to west of Honore. And we tried to draft a concept that took in mind even the nearest parts of the corridor. But there are opportunities for landscaping in the future. Next slide. Now, we do realize that's a long-term vision, 20 years, that's a long time to wait, because that is a rebuild when you're moving curb like that. But we also know that we resurface our roadways on a quicker schedule. So the next time Fruitville is resurfaced, that is an opportunity to start shifting the corridor. And one idea that we put out there that had some support was restriping, maybe having a separated bicycle facility to start claiming that space on the edges for people walking and biking, and see how that goes. You know, we had a lot of comments. Some folks were like, well, what if that works? Well, if that works and we get that input, maybe the corridor stays looking like that, which is one point I want to bring up. These corridor vision plans are the beginning of a discussion with our partners, with the public. As a project moves through different phases, we're always coming back to make sure we're on the right track. Next slide. And since there was a question we saw about, well, what is going on Fruitville? In addition to that visioning study we did want to highlight that we do have the I-75 Fruitville DDI project in the works. This project is currently in design. We have funding right now in our work program in 27. So I just wanted to bring that up. And I guess one more point to add, the planning concepts I showed you, they align even with this design. This design is trying to manage speeds throughout the corridor. There are sidewalks on this as well. So that was actually a really pleasant surprise to see how our concept is leading into an interchange, and it actually could all work very smoothly. Next slide. And to wrap up what we are looking at in planning, electric vehicle charging. So the department has been working on a plan for the whole state, and right now it's in 2 phases. So phase 1, we are looking to fill the gaps along the interstate to meet the goal of having these fast chargers accessible every 50 miles. And our first step, there's an industry forum in June, and applications are due in August. So that is phase 1. Phase 2, once we get accomplished phase 1, we'll be looking at the other state highways that are designated as alternative fuel corridors. And we wanted to share with you a good map of what that's looking like for the whole state.
Is this mostly for interstates? For 75 and?
It's, well, DOT does not build the EV chargers. They're privately owned, they're privately maintained because DOT cannot accept money, and then, you know, they take power. So like Tesla or one of the other vendors, they would put their own in and set up how they're going to get the power reimbursed for. So we're just making sure we identify a location that's available every 50 miles.
You have to prepare a location for it, is that it?
That's what
Is
these
that your
are.
responsibility?
Yeah, that's what that's what our contract will be doing, is identifying locations.
Okay, thank you. Well, the Transportation Committee of DSCA prepared a page-and-a-half set of questions that we put together, and wow, what a great job. You covered virtually every one of them. And so we're going to spend a few minutes, first of all, asking if members of the board have questions that they would like to ask anybody. And then we'll open it up wider for a few minutes. Yeah.
I live at Mound and South Palm Avenue, which is a speedway. And there was a plan talked about at one time of having a roundabout in Orange and Mound, which is part of 41. Do you have any comment about that? Any information about that? To slow traffic down on Mound.
I don't have.
Yeah, so this is the area that I believe Selby is kind of working in
Right.
that area. At this point, Dan, do you want to kind of give an update?
Oh, it's not part of our current, it's not part of our current vision at this time. It's not really all that feasible. The roundabout at US 41 in Orange. So it's really, if it's a possibility, it's on the, it's not, then you're,
On the back burner.
yeah, it's definitely on the back burner for buildings other options, and so. I think that there, you know, Selby did donate a good chunk of right away on their corner, but we really need area from the other corners as well. So it's on the back burner. Yeah.
Real quickly, I live on the very west end of Boulevard of the Arts, and it was a mention of the intersection of 41 and Boulevard of the Arts, and I understand holding off till you have all the roundabout space to do a traffic, speed study, et cetera. But there were some initial temporary signs for don't block the box at that intersection. And when the roundabouts back up, as it was occurring today again, the intersection gets blocked. And is there any chance of putting those signs back up or some permanent signs for don't block the box visible there, that intersection on the north-south?
They are ready. The do not block the intersection is already in front of the bay. There is a sign already
Before they approach the intersection.
before the approach to the
But there's
intersection.
nothing that's on the other end side of the intersection that, like it's done in other intersections like that. So it's the people, when they're facing that intersection, they see the sign in front of them reminding them it's one of the places that would be appropriate there. We've seen it at other intersections, so thank you for responding.
But I think we can, you can send to traffic ops to kind of see what they can come up with.
Well, I mean, if this, honestly though, if the sign is up and they're not obeying it, that's an enforcement issue.
Yeah, but he's talking about there's no sign. Where's the other?
On the other side,
the
so
other
if you're,
side.
On the
coming
boulevard of the-
northbound, if you're coming northbound, there is no sign.
North,
But
okay,
if you're going southbound, there is a sign.
So
Okay.
that's maybe some traffic.
so we have a missing sign then.
So, yes,
Yes, I, just two quick questions. One of them may not even pertain to you, but on the traffic cameras, especially when you were talking about the amount of speeding and whatnot, do you find those effective and is that something that you do or is that done by the police department?
The cameras that I was talking about are simply traffic monitoring cameras, so that we can see if there's stack ups at an intersection or something like that, and the signals guys can adjust the timing on the signals. They're not speed cameras.
My other question is about traffic calming, speed bumps and such on certain areas. I know that they seem to be pretty successful on Orange, quite a few of them. Is there any talk about putting any of those in to mitigate some of the speeding that occurs, say, on Fruitville or?
So, I think we don't put speed humps on state roadways. We can do a speed table, but you have to have the speed limit below, I think it's 35 or 30. I think we're talking about doing one at the Boulevard of the Arts.
A raised intersection.
Raised intersection.
Yes.
So you're not gonna be able to go over that at a good clip, because it's three or so inches higher than the normal roadway grade. Same as a speed table. Speed table is essentially the same thing, just narrower.
So as you're going through, let's say on 41, as you're going through some of the intersections that are by Fruitville, Boulevard of the Arts, going through there, and the speed should be slower, are there speed bumps that are raised? I know there was some talk about maybe putting in some raised areas to slow the traffic as they approach the roundabout.
So there was discussion at our office for where the crosswalks are, to make those the speed table, not the hump, but you make the crosswalk itself the table. So it lifts the pedestrian up it's a little bit higher, brings them up into more the line of sight, and in addition to jarring the car a little bit. The roundabouts are designed so that you can't really go faster than 20 without feeling the discomfort or veering into another lane. If they're going faster than 20, then we'll probably have to go look at maybe we need to tweak our designs from here on out. You know, the state is doing more of these every year. These were some of the first ones that we had done. In fact, the 10th and 14th were the first modern roundabouts that were open in the size capacity that was done, 2-lane versus just a single lane. We had some single lanes. So we're still learning. And if we do need to go back and put a speed table, if they truly are coming out too fast, that's probably something that can be easily done.
Okay, okay, one more from our group and then we'll open up for 5 minutes.
At the Bay Park meeting last week, someone made the statement they're looking at an overpass at 9th Street on Tamiami Trail. Is anyone? AG Lafley.
Oh, a pedestrian overpass?
Yeah, the Bay has been asking to do that for a while.
But from our understanding, that was something the Bay would have to consider.
For the Bay to do it.
Yes.
But obviously the city would be involved and I assume FDOT would be involved. I mean, And they have anything that to, goes over your highway.
They would have to go through the permitting process.
Permit, a right-of-way use permit.
Through DOT, but again, I think the direction right now is the Bay's taking the lead on that.
Okay.
So I mean, but yeah, I mean, essentially, if they wanted to do pedestrian overpass, it would have to go through DOT permit and all that.
Okay, yes. Concise, please.
I'm Howard Kilman. I live on the boulevard, corner of Boulevard of the Arts and Tamiami. And obviously disappointed that there is no roundabout there. The problem really is multifaceted. One is there's a long stretch of road between Fruitville and 10th Street. And once you come off that one roundabout, it looks like a racetrack and it acts like a racetrack. And the amount of motorcycles and hot cars and just normal people not obeying the speed limit. So that's one thing. Second thing is that there are no U-turn, and people, whether you're heading northbound or southbound, for some reason want to do a U-turn, and you can't make a U-turn, so now you're backing up in traffic. So real simple solution, no U-turn, northbound, south, simple solution. The third one is the most problematic for the city, as well as the state, because it deals with pedestrian safety. In that you got the racetrack thing going, you got the cars that are backing up, and then you're trying to cross the lane of traffic, 4 lanes of traffic, with not a median in the middle where you can have a safe passage. So it's kind of like that Frogger thing. You remember that? The people are trying to get across there, and you have to remember people trying to get to the Bay with children, right? With wheelchairs, with people that are somewhat challenged. And even me, I have to run across there. And then you got people trying to make a right-hand turn, a left-hand turn. So it is a bad intersection, and we are set up for disaster. And we need to calm that traffic down. I don't know if it's a raised table, whatever it is. We need to build a median in there so people can cross it. And you got to stop the U-turns. So that's just my input to you guys. And hopefully it's public safety, right? I'd love to have the roundabout, but that's expensive. You got to get land and get it. But you can't kill people. And it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And just because my apartment kind of looks over it, and we've been there, I've seen 5 accidents, one of them is a turnover. When they flipped in, there's a child in a car seat there. So that's no pedestrians yet, it's gonna happen.
Okay, I have 2 questions, we'll go here first and then.
So, hi, I'm Steve Roskamp. I regularly cross 41 at 14th Street, just south of the roundabout. And that hawk signal, which I was a little bit dubious about working, works. It took a couple of months for driver behavior to slow down. And at this point, I don't even have to hit the signal. People are so used to slowing down there. So I don't know, the hawk signal gets you halfway across to that median, and that whole design there, I'm a fan. I think that it's a well done, it works. And then my question is on the roundabouts at MLK and Myrtle, what's the timing of that then?
It could be a while. They're in design, they're just starting at 15%. But until we get some right-of-way money, they're just gonna sort of work their way through.
Okay, so there's no schedule yet.
Once you get right-of-way, it's usually 2 years for acquisition, just to get through the whole process. So if right-of-way money dropped in next year, it would still be 2 years, and then you gotta find the construction money. So you're probably a good 5 to 7 years out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more question.
I'll just throw these out. How about dark sky lighting? I noticed at the roundabouts, there's no shielding on it, and I sent it to Alice Ramos a year or two ago suggesting that the lighting should be shielded. There's a terrible amount of glare. You can light the roadway without lighting up the neighborhood. Number two is the Ringling Bridge bike lane is not cleaned often enough. I ride that, and there's often metal, scraps, debris. Nick, the PennDOT people, I know that the city doesn't do it, so the PennDOT people or the FDOT people need to clean the bike lanes more often. There's a lot of glass in it. Is there going to be a roundabout at 41 in Maine? And what about smart signals?
So there will be a roundabout at 41 in Maine. It's tied to the same project with Ringling.
So that's a year or two out.
Well, that's much further because we don't even have design started on that one.
Okay, one last question.
I'm Vic McTeer from BLVD. As you know, we talked briefly about this. There are major concerns about the increased amount of traffic that will be coming through that particular intersection with the project that's coming down BOT, from Orange Street all the way to Tamiami, and also because of the growth and development that is going to continue. If Part 1 goes through, there will be a mall there for all intents and purposes. And we need to know whether or not there's a possibility that there will be a roundabout, which we have been led to believe is the safest way of transporting a large amount of traffic and as well vehicular and pedestrian traffic. I agree with everything my friend has said about the dangers. I'm a 21-second person trying to get across that intersection, and it is quite dangerous for us. Also, some of the homeowners would like to know whether or not you thought about the sound concerns if the elevated intersection goes in the place that you've been talking about for this particular intersection instead of a roundabout. We have people on lower floors who are not looking forward to the bump bump sound that will readily appear as people move down the racetrack from 10th Avenue, 10th Street, coming across the bump bump, which is located at that place. We'd like very much to know whether or not you're doing traffic studies as to the ever increasing number of people who are going to be coming through that intersection by way of vehicles or pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what the city's doing. You know, we got the 10th and Boulevards of Arts complete streets. So we have the 10th and Boulevards of Arts complete streets, and when I got to the city, I worked with traffic ops and DOT to do a raised intersection at that location. There were other concepts provided. However, you know, as we know, roundabout due to right-of-way feasibility is a challenge. So based on that, the raised intersection is the next best concept. But if we do not get the grant, then I'll turn it over to Nicole to kind of decide on how that's going to move forward, you know.
Yeah, right now the department has nothing programmed at that intersection. So when we do get something programmed, if anything we do would involve right-of-way purchase. It's very tight through there. So then we'd be thrown into a PD&E, which would then analyze noise.
Okay, thank you folks very much for a enlightened and, in fact, let's give them a hand. We need to finish up the remainder.
Yeah, no, and thank you. It was a 150-mile journey for you folks. So we appreciate you doing that, appreciate your time. You're welcome to sit around for the board, but I'm thinking not so much. So.
I would try back in the day.
Okay, all right, okay. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for having
Nick,
us.
thank you for helping put this together.
And if somebody else has to catch them on the way out.
Okay, gang. kind of knew we were gonna run a little bit over, so let's do the Reader's Digest version to the extent we can on some of this. Under old business, Bob, do you have an update for us on the members survey?
The survey is, I would say it's almost complete. We're in the process of tweaking. I've gone through and filled it out for Broadway and Promenade. It took me about 20 minutes. I think there's a couple tweaks that we still have yet to do. But I believe is really.
Okay,
So they're almost complete.
Okay.
Yeah, the major difference is that 2 years ago, we did it on a 2-page PDF, fill in the blank. This is now currently 73 questions across 20 pages, questionnaires, with all the features and bells and whistles we can utilize within SurveyMonkey to enable you to navigate. If you answer yes to this one or no to that one, it takes you to different places. So it should be well to do. And you can save where you're doing and regain that. But what we're finding is that we need adequate instructions to guide people through the process, or it won't get completed, or we'll be answering tons of questions, et cetera. So right now, the committee is trying to go through it, make notes, and from that, guidelines to help people on that. But it is comprehensive, and the best thing we can say is to all of our member reps is, please be waiting for this and work with us and fill them out. Last time we had 80% of our members participate, and the data was very valuable. And we all know the struggles every condo is going through now, and so the best way we can serve our members is to get up close to 100%.
And just one quick shout out to the committee that's working on this, Rosemary, and there's a broader group.
Sherry Banks.
And Sherry and all of you that are involved. So
Was it sent to the reps? Not yet. Oh, it's
And
not.
what's your
Oh,
timeline?
no,
Still
it's just-
around. What's your target?
Well, hopefully by June meeting, we should be done. I think maybe a target and be ready to put out an announcement. I think maybe we come back to the board and say, here's the cover letter and so forth. There's not a way for us to easily print out the 70 odd questions. We're trying to find a way to do some sort of preview so that the people can go through and then gather the data that they need to fill everything out. Because there's financial data, there's amenities information, there's rules and documents information. So it is comprehensive, but as we did last time, it covers a lot of ground, but it gives you a lot of good data.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing? And I spoke with Sheila Connell, who we contracted with on the original, and she's willing to come back on board and help us with this. And she's incredibly helpful, particularly dealing with the various associations where she's well known to most of the managers, and it's usually the managers that fill these surveys out.
Great, thank you.
Did we get a clarification on time and materials? Because last time it was on a full flat fee basis.
I spoke to her about that, and I think a flat fee is probably the way to go. She said, do you want me to be charging you an hour to drive, here, or drive? She may even have to visit some of the associations. Or, I think the time she takes on the phone, with people can eat up an awful lot. So, we're probably better off, I think, with some sort of contract number.
She can come back to us then with an estimate. Okay. Last time it was, budgeted more, but I don't think it took as much of her time. We want to make sure.
She said the last time, she put a lot more time than her hourly fee would have eaten up,
All right. Come on, thank you.
Kathy, any city updates?
Yeah, the only thing that I can tell you is that right now I'm following up on the things that are going on Main Street as far as banditos goes. I'm kind of stirring up a little bit of asking people to get a little bit more vocal about what's happening down there, and I can talk to you about that.
Yeah, let's talk about what's the right thing to do or not, how involved to get or not.
Right.
Arts and culture, Ken? He's gone. Oh, Jamie.
mark your calendars for October 19th. That will be our next associate members event. We do not have a topic yet, but it will be at Church of the Redeemer. We'll start the planning process in June.
Greensville,
Nothing for this month.
homeless, Peter?
Who's taking minutes?
Oopsies.
Okay, I'm, now that I'm embarrassed, no. Anyway, I was gonna say, cut this whole thing short, my report will be attached to the minutes, I hope, usually there. And if you go to the most recent newsletter, and look under health and safety, you'll see a number of very good little blurbs about the homeless and the safety. And that's better than me trying to give you a report now, because that's all well thought out and presented. So thank you.
Okay. Health and safety, I'm not sure I have anything.
Yeah, that's in the newsletter, yeah.
Yeah. Anything particular to add, Kathy? Anything? Zoning, the zoning text amendments proposed by planning are to be going to the planning board on the 16th. Steve Culver is going to be making a presentation on these at CCNA on Saturday. I think I circulated the draft of those, whether people looked through all that stuff, I don't know. A couple weeks ago, before it went to the DRC, I think there may be some minor tweaks, but my hunch is the largely what was drafted for the DRC is going to be moving ahead for consideration with the planning board mid this month, and then the commission in early mid-July. Any comments? Anybody looked at that? Had any comments? I think it is the 4 times density from the base that was originally proposed. The parking at 0.5 for a tenant and 1 for market rate units. One big thing to me is they are establishing what they call a pedestrian zone. And a pedestrian zone would be on primary grid streets, would be 14 feet. So that would be 6 feet of what is called an amenity zone. Think of it as a planning strip. And then an 8-foot sidewalk. And that will be a requirement. And 6 feet is large enough normally, unless there are utility issues, to get in canopy trees. I think that that's one of the real positives of this if it sees the light of day. So that would, in some cases, require a property owner granting a right-of-way to their property to get back from the curb 14 feet. No, I don't know if it's perfect or not, but I think it could be a step in the right direction. Any other discussion on this? Yes.
Well, as you and I had discussed, one thing that's missing in the staff's presentation is any follow-through on the commitment made by City Manager Martin Brown, and I thought Steve Cover, back when they were discussing the higher density bonuses of including community workshops. Instead of, when they do administrative review for this, that there would at least be a community workshop specified for that. And for the downtown zone, I believe there should be, because as I understand, there's another paragraph in there that's adding something to the Rosemary Residential Overlay District. And when that was first put forward, as the process started back in 2017, it included the provisions for community workshops. Anytime somebody chose to build under the Rosemary Overlay District. When it came forward to planning board, Mr. Cover took that out of there, saying, oh, there was a parallel effort, which at the time was the STOP effort to bring forward public hearings for downtown. And we knew at DSCA that wasn't gonna work. We didn't support that. What we supported was community workshops. And that didn't get reheard by itself. And to allow this to go forward without including the provisions for a community workshop, to me would be not in the best interest of the downtown residents. Because when you're having something, it's one thing if they're doing everything by the current zoning, the administrator review works fine. But this is adding new things, new density, new stress to it. And to me, those should be considered similarly to a conditional, well, not a conditional use that would require public hearing, but at least a community workshop.
So in other words, if, as usual, it's administratively approved, as normal, but if a special provision, incentive is granted for the added density, that would kick in the need for community workshop.
Yes, otherwise it's administrative review, but when you're doing that added bonus density for whatever reasons, and there's a list of things that they have to do.
I mean, any further discussion on this on the board? I mean, is this a position you're recommending the board take? Becker?
Well, yes, not at this stage, but it is going to come up under CCNA because the presentation will be made there. And as our representative, I would be asking, maybe that's the question, is at this stage, should that be raised as a question, is why are we not going to have community workshops as Mr. Brown had promised? When those density
Well, I mean, with board permission, I'm the district rep.
Yeah.
I mean, I can ask the question in the form of a question on Saturday. It's then another roughly week before the planning board meeting, so see what the reaction is.
Or have other inputs there.
I think it makes sense to me if they make some decisions that are going to be above and beyond what is expected. I think it makes sense to have a community workshop. Does anybody else agree with that, or am I?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I will pursue this to some extent on Saturday. Roger, anything more? No?
I think you've had enough on transportation.
Okay. Oh, excuse me, Park District project, excuse me for bouncing around. Just to draw everybody's attention, there is a pretty major project planned at the southeast corner of 301 and Fruitville, right? 9 acres, about 2/3 of the size of the quay. That is, could involve as many as eventually 1,000 dwelling units. I was at the DRC and kind of watched it. First phase is 300 apartments, but it's just, it'd be administratively approved, but just kind of heads up, it's a pretty major block of development moving east. Bay Park Conservancy, Bob?
Bay Park, very briefly, phase 2 is going to begin this month. There was a summary in the paper just a day or two ago. Roughly $65 million. 60 million will be TIF backed bonds that the city will be selling, and roughly $6 million for operating. Apparently the bonds can't be used for operating, only for construction. So it's moving along. They've also changed the zoning of Centennial Park so that it has the same zoning as the Bay Park. And right now, there's nothing that I've seen for Centennial Park other than they want to increase surface parking. And at some point, they may want to change the layout of the docks or add another launching area from that area. But there's nothing planned yet. And anything that would be planned would have to go before the planning board.
And then
obviously,
the management structure changes there.
yeah, and AG Lafley has, he'll still be involved, but they've hired a CEO. They're adding staff now, as this project is moving on.
Okay.
So quick things. One, in the, did you get any news that they've agreed to add a compost station. I heard a rumor they were going to add that, and
There was no discussion. I may have zoomed out there for a second, but I don't recall any
it was
discussion.
mentioned at one of the activities by Francis, I think it was. So something that the sunshine composting that we have been working with, I had helped write letters to the hotel to have them establish that as another park with a compost station, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully there'll be an announcement on that. Under their
There was, as I say, I don't recall, and I'm pretty sure there was nothing discussed at the board meeting.
And other quick things to clarify, the comp plan amendment and zoning changes for the Bay Park, it did include, as I understood, that in future construction, that a community workshop would be required for anything over 5,000.
Exactly, yes, 5,000. I think they originally planned 10,000. They brought it back to 5,000. And there was a perception that there was going to be some sort of residential development there. The only plan is for perhaps something like 10 studio apartments that would be live, work, and primarily for the arts, the Van Wezel and the new performing arts hall, that there may be a limited number of residents, and we're talking studio apartments perhaps, and the number that was bandied about was 10. So it's not a huge complex, or there's not a Motel 6 going in there or anything like that.
CCNA, I have nothing. I'll have something after Saturday, presumably. I can't think of it. As I mentioned, Steve Cover's presenting, and there's some discussion about traffic calming, but that's all I know at the moment. On the Rosemary District, Jerry Vogel was before the prep board about 10 days ago and presenting a number of parks, including the Rosemary, and made a commitment, a soft commitment, shall we say, to have the park constructed by the end of the year. So that should be, hopefully that will happen. Got a couple new restaurants coming in there, so in the next 6-8 months, that whole corner area there could be pretty changed. So, okay, in time for the holidays. That's all I've got. What have we got? Hi there. Hi there. Come on down.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Anika Mantias with Brooke Simpson. I'm an executive liaison. I'm going to introduce one of
Down there where they can see you.
Okay.
Don't go down there where they can see you.
All right. Okay. This is one of the attorneys with the firm, Anya Party. And she'll
You can't see on the screen.
Okay. There you go.
There you go.
There we are. Anyway, Annika invited me because I know that this is a group of board members, and so I'm going to kind of give you a Reader's Digest update on some very recent Florida law that might affect you and your communities, and just something that you should keep on your radar and know a little bit. So within the last few weeks, there have been some major changes to the way that civil lawsuits can be brought in Florida. You may have heard of it in other contexts. It really affects the ability to bring certain medical claims, but it also spills over into construction defect claims. One of those bills was House Bill 837, which was passed at the end of March, and it's really known as the Tort Reform Bill, and that's for a reason. It really forecloses many lawsuits from being brought by plaintiffs. And one of the elements of that bill was that the statute of limitations for negligence claims was cut back in half from 4 years to 2 years. Now, the reason that's important for you guys to know is that very frequently when there's something that goes wrong with a condominium or with homeowners associations, the first thing that we do is look to the contractors and look to the design professionals to hold their feet to the fire in order to ensure that homeowners are not receiving these massive assessments that they need to foot out of pocket. And we need to make sure that we're able to bring claims within a certain period of time to hold the contractors and design professionals responsible. Now that negligence claims have been cut back to 2 years, that can really affect the way that litigation is brought in the context of construction defect litigation. And so we just want to put board members on alert to really be aware and do your due diligence, especially in newer communities, that you're looking out for anything that might be going wrong with the stucco, with the roofing, with the rebar. Surfside, I don't know if you guys remember a few years back, it's hard to forget, but the Champlain Towers collapsed. We actually do a lot of education on what went wrong in that particular instance and what led to that tower collapsing. We all know that Florida weather is really rough on buildings and especially the high rises. And so a 2-year limitation of claim for negligence is really, really significant. So we can't really express how significant that is. The other major change is Senate Bill 360, which passed just a few weeks ago in the middle of April. And that is a construction defect specific bill, which has limited not the statute of limitations, which remains 4 years for construction defects for Florida building code violations, but limits something called the statute of repose, which means that when there is a defect that's hidden in a building, such as at Surfside, where you have rebar rusting or you have issues with the pool deck, and it's something that's not obvious. It used to be that there would be a longer period of time to bring litigation, and that longer period of time was 10 years. Now that period of time has been cut back to 7 years. In addition to that, that time frame didn't start ticking under the old law until a number of different triggers happened, and it was the latest of those triggers. There used to be like 10 different triggers. Those triggers have been cut back to just a few triggers, including the temporary certificate of occupancy. And it is now the earliest of those triggers that starts that clock ticking. Now, what's really strange about that is that you can have a temporary certificate of occupancy issued for a unit in a condominium before someone even moves in. So the clock, I would say theoretically, but in a very real way, starts ticking at that point in time now, the earliest of all of those triggers. So again, those are just some things to keep in mind at your communities and in your discussions, and really it pertains to new communities, but there is one caveat, and that is when there's new construction that's going on in an old building, and it's significant new construction, for instance, you're redoing stucco or you're redoing the roof, that can serve to reopen the timeframe for the statute of limitation and the statute of repose. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, what happened to all those lawyers? Are they cutting in the legislature? They're cutting their, used to be lawyers wanted more.
Right,
Make it
lawyers
more
used to be
open
the
to-
people who are in power, now
Yeah.
the insurance companies are the people in power, so that's what we're feeling with. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just be a little more proactive and diligent on that stuff. I'm going to introduce the next members, the platinum members. We have Terry Phelps, Socotec. Do you want to come up here?
Hi there. There's a shoot.
Hey, everybody, my name is Terry Phelps, and I'm with Socotec Consulting. We are a full-service engineering firm. We are a forensic engineering firm, which means we deal only in the post-construction element. We can help you with the new milestone inspection, structural integrity reserves. Any, as we alluded to before, the construction defect, we are very heavily involved with expert witness testimony. We were on Surfside post-collapse with our geotechnical with the rigs drilling for the root cause, but that all ended very abruptly when the insurance company folded. So, but we can help you with a myriad of items, anything that condos or HOA associations need, we can help you with 90% of that. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Awesome. Let's do Kristen Fury next. She's a platinum member.
Hi everyone, I'm going to talk about me. It might take me a while to get over there. You don't know me, but just to recap, I have a portfolio of clients that I represent. 4 of them are platinum members, professional plumbing. Now is the time to do your pipelining project. And they have 24-hour plumbing services, so if you need any of their assistance with that. I also have Right Way Emergency Services. It's right in time for hurricane season. If you don't have an ERP plan, they can get you one free of charge. That's emergency response plan. I also have CBIZ insurance, so we don't want to talk about insurance right now, but if you need one, I have one. And then also Socotec Consulting, engineering firm.
I have a couple more, they are silver members that are not on the platinum level, so I'm not allowed to talk about that. But if you need help, I can help you later. Piggybacking on the Senate bills, the Senate Bill 154 just passed. We don't like it, but we're just now digesting it. It's huge. It's a huge bill. It's about your building safety regulations. Some of those things they are pushing back in certain circumstances. If your municipality agrees with you that you couldn't get an engineer to do your milestone or whatever, they're starting to waver on those deadlines. But I don't know, it's up and down. So we're gonna digest that and I'll try to get a copy to you guys if you're interested. So, all right, thank you.
All right, let's do Paul Schott, Serve Pro.
Good evening, everybody. I am Paul Schott. I'm with Serve Pro. I am your local emergency service provider here. We're going to have some great, exciting news coming out of Serve Pro in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. I'm not at liberty to tell you what that is, but Brandon, you all know, he'll be here next month. He'll tell you about that. I do want to echo Kristen's thought as far as hurricane season coming up. In my travels, which I handle all of downtown Lido and Longboat Key, many organizations already have an agreement in place with a local provider. The only problem with that is they tie you into exclusivity. So the big learning from Ian, what is your plan B? If you are prohibited from having a viable plan B, I would ask you to reconsider and come talk to us. We have a very open agreement, not contract, where it's very friendly for the organizations to work together. The old way we used to do business, where we looked each other in the eye, we shook hands, and that was our agreement, not punitive contracts where we're threatening to sue everybody. So with that, keep that in mind. I'd love to talk to you all about that. And I'll be serving some wine later, so you can. All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, look, where's Fred Grady?
Greetings from Alderman Oaks. You've heard from me enough, and you hear from my colleague Don Fitz pretty regular with his 9,000 person email blast. Just finished up our 25th anniversary. Completely remodeled the building. We're a different look. Just come and see us, especially the jazz projects, wine and cheese.
Thank you. Great. Aaron Mace with Youthful Aging. Not here? Okay. I don't think Steve Shaw is here. No. I think that's it.
Vanessa.
Oh, wait.
So I can never announce.
Sorry.
She's right here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Sorry, thanks. Hi, nice to meet everyone. My name is Monessa Sally, and I'm representing Sarasota Contemporary Dance Company. I am entering my 5th season with the company as a professional dancer, a teaching artist, and also serving as production lead. And we're located right on the corner of Boulevard of the Arts and Central in the Rosemary District on the 3rd floor above Sarasota Ballet. And we just recently closed our 17th season, Reclaim, and we are approaching our 18th season and the fall, and we're really excited about that. But we also have a big, exciting summer planned, and I wanted to share just a few events we have going on there. In addition to our main stage performances throughout the year, dance classes that we offer to the community, and also in-studio production series, this is what we have to offer in the summer. We have a summer sampler workshop in June. This is all levels from beginning, intermediate to advanced, ages 14 and up. That includes any age above 14. That will be happening in June. Then we have our pre-professional summer programs, which are intensives that happen in May, June, and July. Each of those open and close with an in-studio performance, which is open to the public, which are performed by the guest artists that are coming into town to teach, and also SCD company members. We also have our SCD Kids Summer Camp, and that is also, we're offering a new middle age level. So we have 5 through 7 little groovers, and then we have 8 to 10 intermediate movers, and then we're offering 11 through 14 also for the middle-aged dancers. And lastly, we offer summer classes just like we do throughout the season. It's just for a shorter period of time, but if you're open to coming and taking a dance class or know someone who might be interested or have children, grandkids, nieces, nephews, or people coming into town, you can pop in one class. You can buy a 3-class card, 10-class card, a season pass, whatever you want. But we love to have people in our space and sharing our space with the community. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I have these events and offering pamphlets that happen to be on the front of this season, which is cool. And it has everything that I just mentioned, plus more our whole season. And also our website and information is there as well. Thank you so much. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks for having me.
I think that's it.
Okay. Would you believe this? We're only 2 minutes over. Any comments from our member representatives? Anything out there, President ask? Our next meeting is Wednesday, the 7th, and Ken is working on a guest speaker. We'll have more details on it momentarily, but on June 2nd. Anything else other than, shall I call us adjourned in time for some?
Have you checked the chat?
Have you chosen chat?
I'm a new member. I think I'm going to be gone in June. Can I have somebody else from our condo come to the meeting?
Okay, this is our newest member, Cheryl Walker from 100 Central.
Oh, wonderful. Of course you do. Okay, let's talk about that. Thank you. I hope you're going somewhere nice.
Morocco.
Morocco, oh, good. All right, even better. So let's chat about it. Of course, be welcome. Welcome to downtown Sarasota.
So Sue Lair did post on the Zoom chat a question here. Is DSCA taking a stance with the city planner about the definition of 18 stories based upon the building there, Reina Towers on North Mall?
Well, at the moment, no. I believe the DRC directed the developer there to come back for justification of their interstitial space. And so the can was kicked down the road for that justification. The challenge, it was brought up at the city commission meeting on Monday. There was some discussion. Marlon made some comments, it did Commissioner Jed. So it is still an active discussion. DSCA has not taken a position.
But we are very much aware of what's going on with that project.
And watched with a concern, including Jim's remarks with, 75 letters or whatever.
Petition against the project.
Yeah, so it is something we are monitoring. It is coming back to the DRC. So it is of concern. There's no question about it.
Is that not in the scope of DSCA?
It is potentially, but remember, we have 42 members, and there are a number of members who may not feel the same way you do about that kind of a project. So it becomes a negotiation kind of thing to keep our members in balance as to what we support and don't support. But we are very much aware of it and are discussing it, and appreciate the information you provide us all the time.
Anything else? That said, shall we adjourn and enjoy some wine? So thanks, everybody.